More documents have been released today about Jeffrey Epstein and Donald Trump, alongside other documents and emails in relation to Jeffrey Epstein and other people in influential positions or leading positions. But the main thing is going to be surrounding Trump. A couple of things before we get into the released documents and the emails is that these emails, they're mostly emails that have been published so far today, are not even the tip of the iceberg in relation to the files that need to be released in relation to Jeffrey Epstein. Talking about certain emails that mention names like Donald Trump or other certain figures is a very, very small element in the files of Jeffrey Epstein. If people want the files to be released, that means they need to be asking for the release of all of the video recordings and images and photos from Jeffrey Epstein's locations, from his pedophile island to his pedophile building in Manhattan and any other location he has been in. The locations that Jeffrey Epstein had under his control were full of cameras, full of spy devices, full of audio recording devices. That means that all of this information is still not being included in all of these releases that are coming out. However, some interesting information came in the leaks that happened today, that took place, and we saw some interesting moves coming from Donald Trump in relation to this. Of course, lots of media outlets started to speak about this, and some of the emails that were released. Let's go through some of these emails. This is one of them here. Jeffrey Epstein, that's his email address, jeevacation@gmail.com, sent on April the 2nd, 2011, I want you to realize, and he's responding or having communication with Ghislaine Maxwell, by the way, G-Max. I want you to realize that that dog that hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, some people are saying that this is Virginia Giuffre, spent hours with Donald Trump. So spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Police chief, etc. I'm 75% there. Okay. We have a confirmation that contrary to previous denials coming from the White House, and that's the concerning part here, that Donald Trump, that's from Jeffrey Epstein himself, by the way, by the emails only. Again, we're not talking about the recordings, we're not talking about the videos, we're not talking about the photos, we're not talking about the audio recordings, any other means that had these people recorded. Jeffrey Epstein is confirming that Donald Trump spent hours with one of the victims in his house. One of the victims, by the way, that means an underage girl. We're talking about pedophilia here. So this is no light conversation. It's not just Donald Trump wasn't just cheating on his wife or whatever it is. We're talking about a network. Jeffrey Epstein was leading a pedophile network to lure powerful people in the government, in international organizations, to use the information and the recordings that he has on them, all of them were being recorded, as political leverage and blackmail. And we know very well that Jeffrey Epstein is connected to the Israeli Mossad, likewise Ghislaine Maxwell and her father too. And we're not going to go into the suspicious deaths of Ghislaine Maxwell's father and Jeffrey Epstein as well. That's a separate story. However, we know the network, so it's not something light. We're not just talking about the United States of America. We're talking about a foreign country that happens to have a lot of power and influence in America in the form of Israel. That's called literal occupation, because we're talking about the President of the United States. Donald Trump was asked about the leaks that took place in the past couple of days, and he said absolutely nothing. there were several videos of Donald Trump, and wasn't saying anything. What?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, everybody.
Mr. President, are you prepared to negotiate with Democrats now?
Thank you very much.
Mr. President, can you respond to these Epstein emails that were released today?
No response whatsoever. Donald Trump isn't responding to anything in relation to the Epstein files, as if nothing happened. Why? These are files that are very important for the American people, important for the whole world, because the American policies affect the whole world, not just the people of America, by the way, because you have some people in America talking about America first and make America great again, all of that. I think they forget that what the United States does affects the whole world. People die because of American policies on a day-to-day basis. That's why it's important for the whole world, not just Americans. Let's make that very clear. So Trump didn't have anything to say. He didn't have any response to the media in relation to the files that were released concerning him with the leader of a pedophile network. We're talking about crimes upon crimes upon crimes, by the way. Firstly, the pedophilia element in all of this. Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell, with the help of some powerful elements inside of the United States, there's a lot of involvement from within American organizations here. They were running this criminal network, targeting the most vulnerable in society, girls coming from hard backgrounds, teenage girls, in most cases. Again, we don't know if there are others too, who have trouble financially, have trouble from their family's perspective, all sorts of trouble, and promising them, lots of good money. You'll be on vacations on us, and you'll have fun, and you will have massaging sessions or whatever. And many of them, of course, didn't know what they're getting into up until they were there. Many of them were threatened. Many of them had people visiting them in their home, threatening them that if they will say a word, they will be killed. One of the most prominent figures, Virginia Giuffre, she died mysteriously. Some people say it's suicide, but there's a lot that has been uncovered and not known. A lot of what happened for her in the final days before the supposed suicide remains unknown to this day. And she was the one who revealed the information about Prince Andrew. Now, Donald Trump didn't have time to respond to the media, but he had time to do something else. He had time to send this letter. He had time to send this letter to the Israeli president, Isaac Herzog, or Yitzhak Herzog. What is in this letter? A request to pardon Benjamin Netanyahu. Dear Mr. President, it is my honor to write to you in this historic time, as we have together just secured peace that has been sought for at least 3,000 years. I hereby thank you, all the Israelis, again for your gracious and warm hospitality, and am addressing a key topic of my speech at the Knesset. As the great state of Israel and the amazing Jewish people move past the terribly difficult times of the past or the last 3 years, I hereby call on you to fully pardon Benjamin Netanyahu. Fully pardon Benjamin Netanyahu, who has been a formidable and decisive wartime prime minister and is now leading Israel into a time of peace, which includes my continued work with key Middle East leaders to add many additional countries to the world-changing Abraham Accords. Prime Minister Netanyahu stood tall for Israel in the face of strong adversaries and long odds, and his attention cannot be unnecessarily diverted. While I absolutely respect the independence of the Israeli justice system and its requirements, I believe that this case against Bibi, who has fought alongside me for a long time, including against the very tough adversary of Israel, Iran, is a political, unjustified prosecution. Isaac, we have established a great relationship, one that I am very thankful for and honored by. And we agreed as soon as I was inaugurated in January that the focus had to be centered on finally bringing the hostages home and getting the peace agreement done. Now that we have achieved these unprecedented successes and are keeping Hamas in check, it is time to let Bibi unite Israel by pardoning him and ending that lawfare once and for all. Thank you for the attention, for your attention to this matter, the American president, or sincerely, Donald Trump. So Donald Trump didn't have time to respond to all of these leaks that are happening in relation to Jeffrey Epstein that mention him directly being in the Jeffrey Epstein premises, not only with one victim, by the way, but with several, according to multiple reports. But he has time to send this letter to the Israeli president. Why is he sending this letter to the Israeli president when he previously spoke about this many times? Can we see the link here between the Jeffrey Epstein files and the connection to Israel and the connection to the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu? There's obviously a clear link. Number one, the United States might as well be called Epsteinistan, or the United States of Israel. Trump's campaign might as well be called Make Israel Great Again. We're not just talking about the Palestinian people. Of course, the Palestinian people bear the brunt of it because they are the indigenous people of that land that Israel wanted to establish its genocidal entity of terror on. But this goes beyond the Palestinian people. Every country that has this lobby or influential figures, part of a bigger group controlling that entity, that government, has a very big problem. Because we're talking about ruthless killers, mass murderers, genocidal people who don't care about you, who don't care about your children, who don't care about nothing but their own greed and control and maintaining that control. And what's happening now with the Epstein files is a war internally between certain elements inside of America and Israel too. Benjamin Netanyahu is clearly using some of the information he has as leverage against the American president, Donald Trump, and that is no excuse for Donald Trump because Donald Trump is involved in it. So, and there's a very big problem there. So let's not pretend like the problem is external. No, there's an internal problem inside of America, which is led by the president himself, a compromised individual who participated in Jeffrey Epstein and probably had, according to the information that we see, because no one can say for sure up until that evidence is out, had direct links and probably participated in some of the actions that took place there. Jeffrey Epstein confirms that. The people around Jeffrey Epstein, some of them confirmed that. Several victims said that they saw Donald Trump in the building with Jeffrey Epstein. One of them in 60 Minutes Australia said that Jeffrey Epstein at one point at 9 p.m. asked her to go up to a building, to the office, and when she went there, she saw Donald Trump, who was giving her certain looks, and Jeffrey Epstein told her, she's not for you, after she made a weird face at Donald Trump. She's not for you. And they were mentioning something about her being 16 or someone else being 16. That's Donald Trump knowingly being involved in these situations with Jeffrey Epstein, and now is trying to hide as much as possible. And the people, by the way, who are in charge of releasing this information, so if we want to talk about Kash Patel as well, probably compromised too. I mean, there is sufficient evidence to show that the man is not interested in releasing all of the information after he was promising to release the information. They were saying that we will be releasing the information. Some Republicans are now saying that, well, seeing as the Democrats previously didn't release the information regarding Donald Trump, that means there's really nothing against Donald Trump because the Democrats hate him most, and they would have revealed something against Donald Trump for their own sake. But that's a flawed argument because Democrats are also involved in this. Probably Joe Biden as well. So we have a situation here where, number one, we are talking about a government that doesn't have sovereignty in the United States. Let's make that very clear. Donald Trump and his administration, he's the first person who is being blackmailed here. He is the first person who's involved in this, as in the top figure in the United States government. When you hold the president, that's it. The president is the leader of the country. He can make decisions that relate to war. He's the ultimate decision maker, at least on paper, and, well, factually, he can, assuming that, you know, there's no one behind him ordering him and having pressure on him. But we know very well that in the United States of America, the president is a front to what's behind him. And the interesting thing about the Epstein files is that they represent hard evidence to the global population of how things are working, of how things work and are working, by the way, and will continue to work so long as they're not being dealt with. And we're seeing the elements of that, either deep state or people behind having the control, whatever you want to call it, exercising their power and influence and blackmailing with a serving president of the United States of America, who is clearly finding it very embarrassing and who is clearly avoiding talking too much about the matter. He tried to ridicule it in previous interviews he had in the past several months by saying that, well, who cares about the Epstein? Why is it even relevant? Yeah, of course you would say that because you know exactly how close the case is to you. That's for the people who are still, you know, fooled by Trump, because you still have many people who are fooled by Trump, talking about the Epstein files, criticizing Israel, criticizing US policies, but somehow pardoning Donald Trump. That's part of the game. And if there is such a thing as controlled opposition exercising its campaign or having its campaign public, and that's that is controlled opposition. I'll criticize everything, but when it comes to the main person, I'll pardon him because I'll say, well, he has nothing to do with it and his intentions are good. They start talking about intentions rather than actions. They criticize the Israeli lobby and they criticize Israel, for example, but they don't talk about anything to do with their president handing them all of the money and bombs that they need. They talk about the Epstein files, but Trump, yeah, maybe he's not actually, he is part of it. So we're talking about direct evidence, firstly, that there are people who have power and control behind the president of the United States, and most likely very many other countries too, that Jeffrey Epstein was involved with. That's number one, and there is no argument here. So the things that used to be called conspiracies before are now evidence in front of the whole population of Earth. Two, the Israeli case and how much it's linked to the Epstein files is undeniable. It's not external and it's not separate from Israel. Like I said, Donald Trump doesn't have the time to answer questions about a case that is concerning the majority of the American people. If you go online, most of what people are talking about, the Epstein files, they've been talking about it for years now, by the way, Epstein files, and he doesn't even want to answer, but he has the time to officially ask for the Israeli prime minister to be pardoned by sending a letter to the Israeli president after he already asked, by the way. So he didn't really have to do that. because he already asked them. He was in the Israeli Knesset. He was speaking to several figures. There were already several meetings taking place in Israel to discuss the pardoning after Donald Trump started to apply pressure for the pardoning to go ahead. But now he is sending an official letter to the Israeli president so that he can pardon Benjamin Netanyahu, because he's now a peacetime prime minister, something that Benjamin Netanyahu is the furthest away from, by the way. Assuming that Benjamin Netanyahu is a peacetime prime minister, more than beyond delusional. The man didn't even confirm in his own words that the genocide ended in Gaza. He never said. It's Trump who's saying the peacetime. Trump saying that the war ended. Some figures in the mediation process in Gaza is talking about the war ending. Not Benjamin Netanyahu. Circles in Israel, some media elements in Israel, yeah, they are talking that the war ended. Not Netanyahu. So there is no peacetime prime minister here. What there is, however, is a prime minister exerting political pressure and blackmail through the Epstein files in the form of Benjamin Netanyahu against Donald Trump, so that he can secure his future politically and personally inside of Israel. Although Donald Trump asked for the pardoning and spoke about the pardoning, that didn't get finalized in Israel, so it's still open. That's why now Benjamin Netanyahu is applying more pressure, so that Trump had to send this letter for the Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog, so that he can finally pardon Benjamin Netanyahu. And even then, by the way, the pressure is going to continue on Donald Trump. What's guaranteeing that this blackmailing isn't going to continue even after he has this pardon, Benjamin Netanyahu? Pardon or amnesty, whatever it is. But the American president asking for, that's it, a pardon. He will continue to apply pressure on the American president. And the biggest concerning thing for Americans, by the way, first and foremost, then the rest of the world who are victims to the American policies globally, is that it's not going to end with the American president Donald Trump, because the files haven't been released. A couple of emails to pacify the public, to show the public that, look, something is being released. A couple of emails here and there. Although there's enough in these emails to show and prove that this man is involved. But that's, like I said, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. These are not the files. There are no videos. There are no images. There's no audio recording. There's nothing. And in some of the emails, by the way, that were being published today, there was some very interesting information and communication taking place between Jeffrey Epstein and Michael Wolff. Let's have a look at this email between him and Michael Wolff. I think you should let him hang himself. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you valuable PR and political currency. Listen to the terminology. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you, or if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Listen to the terminology. Of course, it is possible that when asked, he'll say that Jeffrey's a great guy and is gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in the Trump regime. Listen to the terminology that these people are using. Political currency, generating debt, generating positive benefit. And they know exactly what they're talking about, because that's how the game works. And they're exercising that game to the fullest. They have the blackmailing files. They have all of the power against these people, and they are exercising their power to the last second, giving Jeffrey Epstein options to deal with this man. And if you go and, by the way, see some of these emails and who these people are, you'll realize what we're talking about. Like one of them is called Larry Summers. Larry Summers, very powerful figure. He has been included alongside Michael Wolff in some of these emails that were provided. And you know which board Larry Summers is in now? OpenAI. So we're not just talking about Larry Ellison trying to get all of the information about everyone participating in new AI and working on the artificial general intelligence to, well, have a genuine dystopian reality in the next few years. But people on the Epstein files participating in OpenAI and ChatGPT, in effect, because OpenAI is the board, or has the board, of the people who are in control of ChatGPT. So people who are in the network of Jeffrey Epstein, people who have had leverage and influence on Jeffrey Epstein and advise Jeffrey Epstein, are still out there, still in powerful positions. Not many people are talking about them, by the way. There was a little bit of controversy, by the way, in relation to Summers when he was put on the board of OpenAI, but that's it, really. They're doing nothing about it. And we have a sitting president in the form of Donald Trump leading Epsteinistan, or the United States of Israel.